In our remake heavy culture, we are no indifferent in the gaming space, and with a hit like Resident Evil 2's remake in 2019, of course, we would have to continue the remakeology. This would lead us next up to Resident Evil 3, a remake of 1999's Resident Evil Nemesis. You know what? I had purchased this game very cheap. It came out full price. People were upset, full price for a short game. The gaming public very much derided it. The critics seemed to be kissing ass if you listen to everybody that was playing. But a few friends of mine said, you know what, this game may actually elicit a second look. Maybe you should go ahead and play it. And I did. I played all the way through it. Did the live stream on Twitch. I'm posting it next week as I am going to be on a Caribbean cruise and can otherwise not make content. But the point I'm getting at here is a friend of mine with a great rec told me to go ahead and play this game. Before we get into it, if you don't want to look like a zombie, check out my buddies over at CALDERALab.com, makers of the finest skincare for living humans. Use my promo code FRY15 to save 15% at checkout. It is murky trying to navigate the waters that are game criticism these days. If you're reviewing a game, are you looking at how it launched? Because every game launches broken now, and every game gets some kind of update. It is fair to say I am playing the end result of Resident Evil 3, the remake. It has received the next-gen patch. I'm playing on a 4K OLED TV capable of 120 Hz, but I completed my first run with ray tracing. And I have to say that the best game engine of this console generation has to be the RE engine. It just never disappoints. Super lifelike models and physics, along with excellent lighting, at what should be the baseline standard of 60 frames per second. Obviously, this is such a significant leap in graphic fidelity over the 1999 original. A game which I don't think should be chastised entirely for how it looks, but consider we had better hardware than the PlayStation at that point. And even Code Veronica on the Dreamcast wouldn't truly look indicative of that generation. That would be saved for Resident Evil 4. I would not yet go on the limb to say that Resident Evil 3 is the best looking zombie game of this console generation. I would reserve that spot for Resident Evil 2 Remake, in part because that game manages to allow you to dismember the zombies. A concession with Resident Evil 3 Remake, perhaps because of the number of zombies on screen. As with Resident Evil 2 Remake, we have thrown away the older style game of fixed camera tank controls. And as much as I loved those at the time, there is no denying they are antiquated. But I think where this game gets an edge is in retaining the dodge function, making for a more maneuverable Jill, who, by the way, I warmed up to her mug. Yeah, I mean, we kind of like the way she looked in the Resident Evil 1 remake, but yeah, you know, this Jill's not so bad. Despite the usual mobs being absolute bullet sponges and you having no reliable way to measure their hit points, being able to roll out of the way in gifted slow motion to aim a headshot makes you feel like a member of STARS. Like many of the original RE games, it was somewhat more open, and I wouldn't say open world, but your objectives required a lot of backtracking and exploration. It's really at this point in the RE remaking that we're looking more to push the game forward, and I think RE3 Remake does a good job attaining that goal. I would much rather be engaged in a game that is littered with scary moments set up to give me the frights and push me forward. With elaborate set pieces, be damned if I can't return to an area to scrounge around. Besides, when you do go looking for lore tidbits, it's usually written like some edgelord teen, which I think is a major distraction to the tone of the game, alongside Jill's potty mouth. But Vaughn, there's a virus turning the Raccoon City residents into zombies. Wouldn't you be dropping the F-bomb? No, I wouldn't, because I have standards. But despite no longer being titular, Nemesis has returned. Look, I prefer Mr. X. I just think he's a little less... Do I need to say edgelord again? And despite both of them being limited in their areas in which they can pursue you, I think Mr. X feels more like he is actively on the hunt, as if a game director is playing against you. RE3 Remake is more about propelling you forward, and in a lot of ways you are forced to run down a hallway away from Nemesis. which is arguably a step backwards for the franchise, but if you want to create engaging set pieces, what else are you going to do? Players are rewarded for dropping Nemi. I like to call him Nemi. Hit him with a stun, such as a grenade, and you are gifted with a case containing items that you will find useful. You have to treat Nemi as a multi-boss encounter, the kind that has a final form. Now, some players are upset about the liberties taken. Oh, we have whole areas locked off. You're hardly in the streets. I think that Jill Valentine here is a more nuanced character. She seems vulnerable at first, traumatized, and she has to man up. And frankly, I think that's an improvement over the 99 original. Likewise, Carlos has been greatly enhanced. No longer sounding like some kind of tropey cringe tryhard, Carlos now seems like a respectable mercenary, whose gameplay differs from Jill's. He doesn't have a tactical role, no, Carlos can shove and sometimes even punch those zombies. Effective and hilarious. Now players take on the role of Carlos twice, both in the police department and the hospital, the latter far more nuanced than previously. Now with horror around every corner. This interpretation of Carlos is cool but respectable. These remake titles have not been strong with music, but this time around I found the use or lack thereof in Resident Evil 3 Remake to be effective, and I appreciated hearing the safe room theme. Now look, I know the biggest issue everybody's having is $60 for what, maybe a 6-hour campaign? While that is your first run, and you will get faster, but I feel like you're getting your money's worth even at full price. Am I wrong, or isn't every Resident Evil game ultimately short once you figure out exactly what to do? How to juke zombies, outrun dogs, and quickly take out bosses. And challenges exist to propel the gamer to play through again and again different ways and improve. Look, I would prefer this over the flip side of the table. An open world game that bores you to death with fetch quests and collectibles. Okay, so this game does have collectibles for you to shoot and read, but I would rather this than in an open world game where they can be hiding pretty much anywhere, taking dozens of hours of your time. Now, before I give my final score, isn't it wild that 90% of you are not subscribed? That's kind of weird, isn't it? That's not normal, huh? Maybe you can do something about that. Resident Evil 3 Remake is often available at a discount, making it the cheapest of the modernized Resident Evils. Thus, comparatively, quite the bang for the buck. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It is, however, misunderstood, and I hope this video gets you to give it a look. I give Resident Evil 3 Remake an 8.0 out of 10.
You just watched a video from my son. He's about 40 and lives in my basement, ladies. So subscriber and notify the bell for ringing. Okay, I said what you wanted me to say. Now do the goddamn dishes.